My career sucks.
Sex just isn't the same.
What's my purpose?
Where did this fat come from?
My relationship is killing me.
I'll never be happy.
My debt is piling up. I'll never find love. Why can't I be like other gay guys? Hey guys, it's time to get a grip, stop whining, make a bold move, and do something amazing with your 40-plus gay life. Let's get to the show with your Tell It Like It Is host, Rick Clemons, who does his best to never act like a dick or a diva unless you act like one first.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk. I don't know why I'm kind of singing that title today. I just felt like that sounded like a good entry point, guys. And again, don't forget, if you want to join the men's group that happens once a month, the third Tuesday of the month, most of the time, go to the website, go to gaymenschat.com. And also don't forget to join our Facebook group of the same name as the podcast, 40 Plus Gay Men Gay Talk, the community. Okay, now that all that's out of the way, one of the things I hear so often in coaching and groups and everything is, I just don't belong. Why don't I feel like I belong? And it becomes very exhausting. And I know some of you are sitting there listening going, and then you wonder, where did this come from? What started to happen? And most of the time it comes from, we've all been playing this game of social expectations and where we feel like we fit in based on other people's, hey, this is how you do it. And then we go deeper and we start searching for something more. Well, today we're going to go do some searching for something more with our guest today. We're going to talk about, why do we constantly adapt to things? We're going to look at like some of the trauma stuff that's probably come on that has caused most of this to happen for many of us. And we're just going to have some fun exploring. So I'm so excited to bring Devin Scott onto the air, who is a licensed therapy social worker. We'll talk about a little bit about how he got there. I already talked about this a little bit, but the things that he's learned, the things that he's doing in his amazing brand called Find Your Meaning, where he blends, kind of body-based sort of coaching with some mindfulness and all this. And those of you watching me on YouTube are going, why is Rick waving his hands all around? I know he kind of does all this in this very cool way. So, and those of you who are listening, you're like, I'm not seeing the hands. Well, maybe you need to watch this on YouTube then. But anyway, welcome to the podcast, Devin. So glad you're here, buddy.
I'm so excited to be on, Rick.
Awesome. Now, I'm going to just tell a little true confessions on him, even though it's going to be March when this airs. He's recording this right now in January when New York City, Brooklyn area where he lives, they're just snowed in. They're totally snowed in and under. So he's kind of glad, I think, to be cozy and in here doing this podcast. So let's start out, man. Like, find your meaning. That's such an interesting thing that all of us are constantly struggling with. But you kind of came to that in your own way and started doing this work. So that tells me you were on a quest to find your own meaning. Is that pretty accurate?
Oh, I think I got there, but maybe that wasn't the goal for me at the first place. I think a lot of people, I entered the work of therapy or coaching or body work because I felt like I just hit a wall where I couldn't live like I was living anymore. And I wanted to feel better. And at first that was therapy, then it was like healing, then it was yoga, then it was meditation, and one thing after another. And at some point I just hit this decision that whatever we're going through in life, it can have whatever meaning we make for it. And the meaning we make for it determines whether we perceive it with gratitude and hope and optimism and agency, or whether we perceive our life as unwinnable or unsolvable. And I'm always looking to just find something to love in whatever my experience is, no matter how much my physical body is not enjoying it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I started kind of laughing when you first started because you said you hit a wall. I'm like, everybody's hit a wall. Everybody's hit a wall. And then I happened to be, I'm trying to remember where it was. We were in Europe this past summer, and it was somewhere in our little travels. I was walking down one of those beautiful little European city streets, right? And there was it was a street that had like lots of interesting art painted on walls and stuff. And I came around the corner and there was this wall and says, welcome to Hit a Wall. This is where everybody has hit the wall. And I loved it because I'm like, oh, here's the real hit the wall, And so, of course, everybody's signing their names. I hit the wall, I'm like, okay. And somebody said, ouch, it hurts. But I think for all of us, that is it. Each one of us, I mean, I came into this work because, yeah, I hit a wall. I hit a wall coming out later in life. And then I hit some walls around career. And then I hit a wall like I hate doing what I'm doing. And I love that your brand is around find your meaning because I feel like where I sit here in this, podcast at this point, it's because I finally found my meaning. Continue to seek it. Let's just go there too. I don't think it's an ending. There's no end point to this. But I find it so interesting that so many of us have, quote, hit the wall, and that's what it took to get us on the track to finding your meaning. So you kind of stepped into this. What has been the thing that you say, okay, I hit the wall, I'm stepping into this? What was that first step you took towards, okay, I'm done, I got to do something different?
I think my first attempt at it was therapy. That was the
Mm,
thing that was most, I think, socially normalized at the time.
yep.
I had tried couples therapy, um, and I was just desperate. And I was just like, okay, we're gonna do the thing that society says is good. And honestly, psychotherapy was not good for me.
Mm,
I'm already like a very cognitively dense person.
okay.
And so psychotherapy really just helped enable me to find new justifications for behaviors that were not serving me. And then I found meditation, and meditation really did open things up for me and
Uh-huh.
brought in spirituality. But I was one of those Westerners who found secular mindfulness because I wanted to feel better. And then I found spirituality because it's kind of unavoidable the more time you spend in silence.
I love that secular mindfulness thing you just dropped. That was a good one. That was a good thing for me to go, oh, let's go explore that. Because I think so many of us do get hooked up. Let's not hook up like get laid, guys, but get hooked up with like, okay, and I don't think either one of us is knocking therapy. It didn't work for you. There's pieces of it that have worked for me. I'm kind of like you in some ways, like my brain already works kind of in that space a lot already. So I need the non-traditional approach to things. I need to go do something completely different. Um, you and I already talked about this, but that's why I never did go into getting a degree in, therapy or LCSW, none of that, because I'm like, well, I was lazy. So you've heard that. I was lazy. I was 47. I don't know. I think I was 47 or 48 when this all was like, okay, let's go do this. And I'm like, okay, well, I got accepted to like UCLA social work. I didn't even try. I literally didn't really try. I'm like, I think I was actually drunk one night. I'm like, well, not completely drunk because I was cognizant enough to fill out the form. And I'm like, oh, let's just try this. Let's see. Because I didn't have a job or anything. Oh, let's try this. Let's see what happens. And like 6 weeks later, I get this, you've been accepted. I'm like, well, shit. Now what do I, now what do I go do? And it wasn't what I wanted. I'm like, I think coaching, I talked to some people like, oh yeah, you'd be really good at this. You'd be really great, but you really want to get your MFT. I'm like, I don't want to deal with other people's marriage, family therapy shit. Did enough with my own. But what guided you to keep going forward? And then what have you since discovered now that you've gone through this? I mean, I can tell just talking to you, you got a definitely cool vibe in your head that you've let guide you, but what pushed you forward and what have you since discovered?
Oh, well, I'm stubborn, first. And like this conversation of belonging I know we're gonna have, I really had this internalized script in myself that I have to prove I can do it by the way society
Mm-hmm.
stamps approval on.
Yep.
And so when I was really into meditation, got my yoga teacher training, I was like, how do I make a career out of this? And therapy was the one that society stamps on. So I went to school, got my master's in social work, literally hated every second of it, and just kept telling myself, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was increasingly unaligned to the point I couldn't keep avoiding that confrontation, that I disagreed with the medical model, I disagreed with the diagnostic model. I really didn't even like setting goals with clients because I think goals tend to foster shame and perfectionism. Whereas if you sit with a body, it opens up and
Mm-hmm.
comes up with its own goals and it's a little lighter, it's a little breezier. And honestly, at a certain point, I realized I wasn't even really doing psychotherapy. I was subverting it. I was subverting the system. What I was doing was my mindfulness coaching that I love.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm one of those people who tends to learn things the hard way. Like I I might get insight, but then I don't listen to it quick. I have to
Right.
like go through it, suffer adequately, and then realize I can't do this anymore. And then I get a big lesson from it, but
Right.
I'm an experiential learner, and sometimes experience is just doing what doesn't quite work.
I find that too. I mean, I have gone round and round in different ways to get to where I am, to where I really do enjoy what I get to do now. But it's taken a lot of experience and stupid stuff that I'm like, okay, you weren't listening, were you, Rick? So let's teach you the lesson again and again. And finally, oh, I guess I should get certified as a coach. Well, as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh wait, I feel like I just dropped my man boobs and lost all that weight, right? It's like, oh, this now makes total sense. But you just said something that I think drives most of us is this exhaustion that we get into, this cycle. Okay, well, let's go do this, and then I'll feel like I belong to something. Oh, well, now let's go do this. Well, now let's go do this. And then suddenly, like I said in the intro, I work with so many gay men or in my groups or to have these conversations where it's like, I just want to belong, but it's such drudgery. And it is. And I think so much of this is because society says this is what you do to belong. And then if you jump into our little narrow microcosm of gay men, it's actually even exacerbated in my mind, because here's what you have to do to belong. So as you work with people, what are some of the common things you hear people saying about belonging and why it's so hard, or why they can't do it, or why they want it? I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things is ask, why do you want to belong? But hey, you do this work, so I'm gonna let you take over here, and I'm gonna sit back and smoke, well, not smoke a cigarette, but eat my bonbon and listen to you.
I'm not sure I've ever had a client come in able to describe it.
Mm,
Um, I describe a lot of my clients coming in as high performers, kind of suffering through a good enough life, and they can't explain why they feel hollow in it.
mm,
And the answer inevitably is because it's not the life that's aligned to you, it's the life that is protecting you. But they don't come in with that answer. They don't know that
mm,
their relationships are feeling like unreciprocated or insincere. They don't even necessarily know they're in a game of belonging, but the nature of the game of belonging is that you always lose.
yeah.
Because if you're playing a game, you usually are not being yourself. And so even if you quote unquote win the game of belonging, get a social connection, they're not seeing who you really are. And so
Mm.
whatever love or respect or support you're getting, it's never going to land because it's landing on a mask or landing on something inauthentic.
I love that because I think most of us as gay men learn that let's wear the mask and then try to make everything fit to the mask until we come out of the closet. And then we put on another mask of, oh, here's what it means to be gay. Or, instead of like, no, what is the root of who you really are, you as who you are as a being? And just really understanding that I happen to be a man who happens to be gay, who happens to be a father. There's all these different things. And it is kind of interesting to like, but yes, are those all masks? No, they're pieces and components of who I am in this human body, having this human experience. And I know, guys, we just went really deep there with what I just said, but this is why I'm talking to Devin, because I think this is sometimes where we need to dig deeper. So when they do come into you and you realize they can't even articulate this, because that's basically what you said. They can't articulate what this is that they're feeling. What are some of the first steps you start to, and I know every client's different, so let's be real about that. But what is some of the things you take somebody into, like, okay, let's start to excavate a little bit?
Every client is different, but I'm a somatics practitioner. And it also depends. I do hands-on, hands-off work. So if
Mm-hmm.
they're on the massage table, it looks a little different. If we're talking, it looks a little different. But I always try to just quiet their mind. And often
Mm-hmm.
that includes a lot of breath work and some movement. Because if they're cognitively dense, it's very hard to get them to witness themselves or look at themselves. And slowly just begin to enter their body and witness their experience. And I have clients who seem so dissociated that what we start with are like simple practices like drinking tea or drinking coffee and seeing if they can be present with that experience. I borrow a practice from Stacey Haynes called embodied consent, which is about centering in your body and learning how to say no, yes, and maybe in a way that is embodied, and seeing if
Hmm.
you can even hold saying yes and wanting something, or if you can hold a boundary and say no, and what that feels like in your body. And so usually it's like we're not getting to like who are you very quickly. We're getting
Right.
to can you even witness yourself?
Hmm.
What happens when you witness yourself? If we look at yourself, do you go into a flood of anxiety being like, you can't look there, it's unlovable?
Hmm.
What are the defenses that come up? Because sometimes the work is really, really slow. I mean, sometimes you make huge milestones that are just shocking,
Right.
but really, I always just start seeing what is the pathway to looking inwards and
Hmm.
go from there.
That's interesting. I was coaching a client this week, and I said, let's start with something really simple. And he's I don't want to go super deep because he's probably listening to this, but start with something really simple. And he goes, I don't even know how to look at something simple. I said, okay, then that's a little bit too much for you right now. So let's step back and go, I want you to think about a flower. He goes, what does this have to do with anything? I knew then I'm like, okay, we're going down the right path. Because if I can get him to like think about a flower, what does he like about a flower? What does he see in the flower? And it was so interesting to watch his energy, Devin, because he's very, I wouldn't say completely type A, but he kind of leans that direction, like got to be in control, got to do. And I could tell that the rigidity started to kind of drop the more I talked to him. One of the things I did, which probably I assume you do too in different ways, was first I did have him like, okay, I want you to just take a couple of breaths with me. He goes, oh, we're going to do yoga. I'm like, well, we could if you want to, buddy. Not going to because I'm not ready for that yet. But I said, no, I want you to take a couple of breaths so you can feel what it's like to just stop and take a breath. And he kind of got really confused look on his face. I said, think about it. How often do we think about breathing? And that's when he got quiet. I said, okay, now that I've got you kind of focused on your breath, we did 3 good deep breaths. I said, I want you to think about a flower. And then that's when he made the comment. And then suddenly, I said, just tell me what you see. What kind, I said, you don't need to be a flower expert. Tell me what you see. And it was so interesting to watch the layers start to peel back because that was simple. It had nothing to do what he's wanting to do in his life, but it's like we got to break this apart. And it was just, I don't know. I'm even talking about it right now. I'm feeling a little bit of goosebumps around it because it was such a beautiful thing to witness him go there. And by the time he was done, he was calm. And I was like, as we were doing this, each time I said something like, and then I said, and then I said, and he's like, I can hardly hear you. I said, I know. Can you hear me? And it was such a powerful move. So I'm sure you've got some techniques that you use to help them really step into that space. And I want you to divulge everything because I want you all, if you really like Devin and you're in the area where you can work with him. But what is something you do that helps them start to break into that different way of being present?
I think these micro experiences, like what you did with your client, are really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do a lot with my clients who are cognitively loaded is I'm really pushy and I push them to feel the somatic sense of their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll get into like little sparring matches on the intellectual
Yeah.
things with intellectual people for why we can go below the surface. And I'll explain that if we don't deal with something in the brainstem, it's going to go to the neocortex, and that's how you get anxiety. But if you deal with it in the physical sensation, it never goes into anxiety. If you deal with something in the limbic brain and the emotional brain, it will never go to rumination because you're dealing with it at the root. And so I can have these conversations. Some people need them, they need the psych
Yeah.
education. But I'll spend 5 sessions with a client who's really mentally loaded, just looking at how scattered their brain feels and what like color or shape the thoughts are having. And if you even stay with the thoughts, you find the thoughts have goals because thoughts are just energy to distract us most of the time.
Yep.
Like why are we having these thoughts? They're not particularly helpful. They're doing something. Our body is trying to do something. So with my mentally loaded clients, I really do a lot of like, what is the physical sense of the thoughts? What is the physical sense of thoughts? And creating those micro moments, like the
Mhm.
flower, or a cup of tea, or holding a pillow, or holding a stuffed object, because I experience is the great teacher of life. And for a lot of, I work with a lot of gay men, perfectionism runs deep, and they come in wanting like a set of goals, an end point, really clear metrics, and you never get to presence and belonging as like a target really, because you are stuck in performance. So every little micro moment where you witness the beauty of just being somewhere, being with something, that creates the muscle of presence and joy and savoring. Um, Sometimes it's
But
a
I think
little easier.
something you just said is so fascinating to me is people go, okay, I need to create some joy. And they go like, okay, how do I do that? I'm like, whatever her name is, the feng shui gal, whatever her little, I can't remember her name. It was all the rage of a couple of years ago. I'm like, well, what if you just breathed? What if you just slowed down? And it was really hard to quiet the mind. I'm not going to say it isn't, Devin, but I hate to even say it because it's actually not that hard. We say it's hard, but I love what you just shared because it's those moments that move mountains.
I think people get intimidated by slowing down because there's a risk it really means meditation, right? Like, I love meditation. It can be dangerous putting someone right into like an hour-long silent Vipassana meditation, because if you want to know how deeply you hate yourself, you go to a silent meditation retreat and it's going to come fast. But if you slow down and you listen to a music without multitasking, that's also mindfulness, that's also
Mm-hmm.
presence. Every time you have your coffee without reading the news with it, that's mindfulness, that's presence. And these are much safer moments because you're sitting in relationship with something, whether or not it's a human, and you're savoring the moment of that relationship. So it's silence, but it's in relation. I often think silence without the relation needs the hand holding at
Mm-hmm.
first, because that's when the really self-violent thoughts come flooding in.
But even recording and listening to this podcast can be a way to be in presence.
Yeah.
And sometimes I know for me, it's actually some of the best time that I'm ever connected to somebody else is right here because it's you and me. Okay. We know this being recorded for other people, but it's you and me being totally present with one another, plain and simple, and hearing each other, experiencing things. I mean, even as you're speaking, there's a interesting peace and calmness that's happening from my day. For those of you we were both talking about, it's been a long day before we came on here. Okay, but I'm finding myself like, oh, this kind of feels good, kind of like a nice little cuddle buddy right now. Like I just feel like, okay, everything else isn't mattering right now in this moment. And I think for many people, this sense of needing to belong is like, okay, well, my perspective, you need to learn to belong with yourself. Because when you can belong with yourself, then you can belong without feeling like I need to belong. Wherever you are, quote, you belong. I know that sounds really trite. Somebody's going, oh, wow, that's a really nice line, Rick. But it is. I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts around that whole belonging with yourself, Devin?
Oh, I agree. Some things are trite but true. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's research on negative core beliefs where, like, essentially all the things around non-belonging come down to nine basic concepts, like I am unsafe, I am unlovable, I am fundamentally unfit for life. We all kind of like boil down to some kind of faith, we might call it soul contract or something
Mm-hmm.
that is like really deeply internalized. Internal family systems might call it a core burden. But it's hard because our brain has multiple parts. Like we have this part that's creating a self-identity, and we'll never be able to kill that. Our ego is natural, it's defensive. It can actually be quite fun if you're friendly with it. But then it goes into our lower brains and we develop a very emotional safety-based response to it. And that is where people really struggle to start belonging with themselves because there's this emotional connection to who they think they are that they've tied to safety, that they are using to earn worth, to earn value, to earn connection, to earn belonging, to earn safety. And when they have this emotional connection that they need to be something because otherwise life is literally unsafe. mm,
But this is such a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
The safety is there's ooh, we're going kind of deep here, but and it is about trauma, it's about family systems, all this stuff. But this thing, I want to belong because it makes me feel safe. There's the simplicity piece of it,
Mhm.
right? I want to be part of the gay community and be accepted because it feels safe. I went from this community where I wasn't accepted. Now I'm stepping into one that does. You know, I'm going to kind of tell a little tattletale here on Devin because he asked me right before we got on. He goes, "Is it okay if I drink tea?" I'm like, "Of course it is." There was an interesting, like, okay, am I going to belong? Am I going to feel good on Rick's podcast? I almost wanted to say, "No, bitch, you can't. You can't drink anything," which would not have been me making my guests feel safe. And I don't care. We drink water or whatever. This is water, guys. This is not Rick's wine. It's not my wine closet here. Could be, but it's not. But I think that's the beauty of when we start to unpack this and we understand why this is so important to it at its core essence, we just want to feel good. We want to feel safe. And the moment
Yeah.
that doesn't happen is when we get really super challenged.
Yeah.
So,
And it's lifelong. Ego is a tricky little monster in that we start to figure out who we are, but it
mhm.
through a not confrontational, but through an introspective process. And then all of a sudden we internalize it in a way that makes it start to feel static, but then we're in the same process again. We're just going deeper and deeper and deeper with ourselves. And even the communities that felt like belonging a year ago might not feel like belonging today because that version of ourselves isn't quite the same anymore.
Oh,
Uh,
but no. We have to have the perfect version of ourselves. I think that's another one. I mean, when I think about where I've moved and grooved, even from when I got certified as a coach, and the self of Rick, who was the new certified coach, to the coach I am today, is so different. And there's pieces of me, like, every once in a while, it's like, yeah, but you coach way different than a lot of other coaches. I'm like, oh, should I retreat? Should I go back? Should I? And I'm like, no, fuck that. This is how I coach. This is how I. And the beauty is, a lot of people who come and find me, they're like, the reason I like you is kind of like, you're just this bold, like, let's get it done, no bullshit, but you're going to hug me up like the big daddy bear that you are, right? And I think too often we get locked into these, oh, wait, here's what I'm supposed to be once again. And we lose our way so easily, so very easily. I mean, I could
yeah,
have told you, you can't have tea, but you can drink coffee. You can drink coffee to be on my podcast.
I would have taken the tea bag out and lied to
Okay.
you.
It's all good. It's all good. So
Uh,
so you do a lot of different things in your modality. There, you've got the I went down this path, got my master's and everything, but that wasn't really what I enjoyed doing. Now you've incorporated the other stuff, the body work, and you're actually even working on something pretty interesting, like really trying to go back into some India sort of spaces and doing some Sanskrit, sort of. You tell it. I'm not doing a good job of explaining this guy. I know what I'm trying to say, but it's like I don't really know how to describe what he's doing to make help people along the way. So let's dive into that, Devin.
okay. Well, I am fundamentally a learner.
Mm.
More than I love my work, I love the process of learning, and people are fascinating for learning. But I'm cross-licensed. I went to school for psychotherapy. I have my board cert in health and wellness coaching and personal training. I have my license for massage. I am a certified teacher for meditation as well as for yoga.
Mm.
Um, and I love learning about what it means to be human from so many different perspectives. I used to love learning about knowledge. I was a statistician. I went to law school. I just loved learning. And I love hands on the body and thinking, especially from an Eastern perspective, like combining Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. And weirdly, people who are actually not very woo are very receptive to like the way their body is girding defensively. So like I find even people who are defensive against the talk work sometimes weirdly soften as we go into energy work on the
Mm,
table
yeah.
because they can like, feel that their shoulders are protecting their neck or that
Hmm.
they're collapsing in on their
Right.
organs. And then we can talk about why that happens. But weirdly, the emotions are also running through there. The energy blocks are, I love it. But one of the things I'm working on is I facilitate this Indic philosophical game
Come on,
called Leela.
spit it out. Take a drink of tea
I'll
there
get
and
my
get it out.
words. It's the inspiration for
Words are
Shoots
hard when
Father.
it's cold and snow on the ground, right?
Yeah. I'm working on a bridge language translation because this philosophy in this game like really changed my life because it's the inspiration game for Shoots and Ladders. So you're just going up and you're going down, and it's the different layers of consciousness,
Mm,
and you're working on different chakras. And the nature of the game is that all your ups and downs are a part of the game. They're all equally valuable and they all have a meaning and they all have a lesson, and you're meant to experience them. Life is not meant to only get better. The more aligned you get, the more sure of yourself you are, actually, sometimes the worse things get. But you start to foster self-trust
yep.
and you learn that consequences are not going to destroy you if you can feel like you had integrity in the process. Like in your coaching practice, one of the reasons I didn't like psychotherapy was in group supervision and in case consultations. I always just felt like the specter of best practice was in the room. Like we were just huddling in a group trying to figure out how to best manipulate the client. And I just don't think like that. I'm not, maybe I used to be a perfectionist, but my philosophy and my work is did I leave an imprint of my values and my authenticity as we were navigating that? Was I in
Mm,
sincere connection with my ethics and my skill set? And if I can answer yes to that, I don't worry because I trust that process that if I'm in sincere, authentic relation, I'm willing to repair if something went off,
yep.
that good comes from that. Um,
But I think that's an important connection you just made. Like that sincere, authentic connection. I'm going to go very coachy here is kind of the North Star. If you feel that, I know that when I'm not, I talk about it in alignment too. It's like, and I always use my hands, those of you watching on YouTube, it's like, if you say you really want more adventure in your life, so that's a high desire, but you're only operating at a low momentum to make that happen, you have misalignment. You're not being authentic. You're not being real. But man, oh, I really love adventure. Really? What's the last adventurous thing you did? Well, I woke up. Okay, that could be an adventure. But like you're not doing this. And what does adventure mean to you? And what does that look like in your life on a regular basis? And it's so interesting, like people who talk about being in integrity. All of us throw the I word, the authenticity. We all throw those words around, right? But what does that really mean? And being aligned in that. And then suddenly, once you realize, okay, that's my alignment, oh, wow, things are easier. I'm not saying they're perfect, but when things are aligned that you say, this is important to me, then you feel, hey, it's easy to make connection. It's easy to do these things that we all keep saying, oh my gosh, it's so hard to connect in the gay community. Well, what's driving that belief? What's driving that understanding? What is the value behind that? Is it your value or is it somebody else's? And this is why I love these kind of conversations because it gives another insight into what are we missing. Not like everybody in the world, like what are you missing that's causing this for you? So as you did the work not only to get certified and everything and did the work on yourself, you've already shelled. So words are hard here and it's warm in California. What did you discover that started to make this, I don't want to be so tried as to say easier, but what did you find that, oh, I practice this and these things, I guess let's talk the flow. I do this on a regular basis, and here's what the flow that got created for you.
Oh.
I know that's kind of a
I
big
mean,
question to answer, but
I wish I could say I was truly consistent on anything, but sometimes my inertia takes over me. I
mm,
do think of the work as not one of like getting knowledge of who you are, but one of learning how to relate to yourself. And there are skills in that that are really powerful for me, like empowering my nervous system, making sure I'm moving, doing breath work, meditating, eating the right food, sitting in silence. Those give me a grounded nervous system, making sure I love my apartment.
mm.
Like the stable base for life is non-negotiable in the question of like rising and authenticity. Um,
Here's
and
an
I know,
interesting little tidbit from what you just said, because it hit me as you were talking through this. Sometimes it's the silliest things that happen that create a whole new experience. So had kids over and everything the other night for dinner, and we're finishing dinner, and suddenly our daughter goes and she goes to sit on the couch, and she was sitting one place, and she go, oh, let me move over. So she got up and kind of jumped on the couch, and the couch leg broke, not because she's, it just, and I could tell by when I started, because, I'm suddenly, okay, I'm Mr. Man, I'm going to fix this, right? Of course, I'm like, we're not going to bed till this couch gets fixed, right? So I got it all fixed. But what was interesting is I get it fixed, I get it glued, we're letting it going to sit overnight. Her and the boyfriend decide to leave. And now all there is this shortest part of the couch for me and my hubby to sit on. And he's like, you want to go to bed yet? I'm like, no. And suddenly we're sitting really close together. Normally he's at one end of the couch, I'm at the other, because that's how we like, okay, we get to spread out now. And here we're sitting, and my body's like, this isn't the norm. What are we doing here? And then suddenly it was almost like this energy showed up, Devin, like, ooh, this is kind of fun. He's reaching over, we're touching each other, we're kind of cuddling. And the first thought that went through my head was, why aren't we doing this more?
mm,
There's been this like interesting like space, literal space between us, because this is how we like to go watch TV and stuff. We each, and so of course the couch gets put back together. I noticed last night, I'm like, okay, I'm at that end of the couch. He's at this end of the couch. But that little bit of extra feeling that night was so interesting, because I allowed myself to be present with, oh wow, I'm really close. And I love my husband to death. That's not why. He doesn't stink, guys. He doesn't smell. But I got really in touch with what I was experiencing in that moment. And I think it's a good example of what you're talking through right now. Like, oh, where do we need to go explore more? Right.
yeah. And we can explore when we feel like we have a stable base.
Mm-hmm. Literally
I,
a stable couch with a foot. That's
yeah. I've been so I've been doing this translation for this game, and two things were really hitting me this week. One was this Sanskrit word kama, which means desire.
mm-hmm.
And in the basis of yogic or Indic philosophy, there are four kind of reasons to be human that are worthwhile. And one of them is pleasure. Another one is
Mm-hmm.
like dharma, doing your authenticity, or like
Right.
following your role. One is moksha, enlightenment. One is, gosh, I forget the Sanskrit word, but it's material wealth and stability.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this basic philosophy that these four things need to come in balance. And there's this
Mm-hmm.
real harboring in here that like you need to resource your life with pleasure. And this is backed by neuroscience. When we have enough pleasure that is actually aligned, back to the belonging conversation, it's really easy to mistake distraction with pleasure. But if you can distinguish them and you ask afterwards, did that feel good in my body? And you just keep asking this question, our brains become more neuroplastic. Our amygdala like starts to flag fewer threats. Um, the more pleasure, the better. And one thing I love about being a massage therapist is massage therapists touch each other all the time. In America, we tend to think of touch has to be sexual or violent.
Right.
And we don't do enough just touching each other. And touching is one of the most resourcing things available to social connection.
Mm-hmm.
I just, yeah, I love being a massage therapist because I love that whenever we're in a room together, one of us is
Yeah.
always rubbing a shoulder
Mm-hmm.
or like, oh, I see that this muscle's off. Let me like work with it. And this is a really beautiful resourcing in my
Mm-hmm.
life.
Well, I think touch is such a beautiful thing only because it brings, so here we go. We're coming back to that, belonging and connection. It's such a beautiful way to feel like, oh, I belong. This person, is touching me. There's a place I'm not being pushed away. I'm not being not seen. I'm not being appreciated. And I think too often we don't, my husband and I have been together for going on 25 years this year. And there's times where it's like, yeah, he's in the room. Cool. Cool. But then those moments that just a simple hug or a kiss or even just, in the car driving, holding hand, it changes everything. And even the gesture of holding a hand is a sign of belonging, a sign of connection. And sometimes we forget these things. I reached out to my daughter the other night after she's like, I broke the cat. I'm so sorry. Dad. I'm like, it was probably already going there. It wasn't, whole history behind that, but I could tell. And especially once I saw the leg and that little bit of a touch, I could just tell it like eased her sense. And again, so here we come back. It's so funny because I saw the little girl and like, I'm going to be in trouble. Dad's not going to let me out of the room. I'm going to have to. I could sense that energy was kind of floating in the space. I'm like, we're cool. We're totally cool with this. And then, of course, she's watching me do this and she's like, Dad's ignoring me. I'm like, no, honey, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to fix a freaking couch. Okay. But I love that you brought this together because I think these are those things that we rush to too often and as humans, but especially as gay men. You walk into a bar and nobody's looking at you. Oh, see, don't belong. What if you just were comfortable with being present and seeing what happens?
And learning to trust yourself that if what you want happens doesn't happen, you'll survive it. Um, you asked how I do it, and I'm going to be really honest. Like, I am in a moment in my life where I am like really struggling with this concept. I just had a, a traumatic breakup um, that had a lot of secrecy, and in the fallout, I'm dealing with these parts of myself that really, really, really wanted to be chosen, to be fought for. And the pain has been like really wild. And I'm having to resource myself with so much pleasure, with so much nourishing. And I'm finding that I've done so much work towards alignment and authenticity. I've shown up differently in so many areas of my life. But when my ex retreated into like a fairly dark third party dynamic, I went to a young version of myself who thought if I was good enough, I could earn love. And so I started acting. I started being the good boyfriend in quotes, not who I am. I started fighting and resisting, and I started telling myself the story, which I didn't have 5 years ago when these things were happening. Because now I'm spiritual. That was like, if I'm a good boy for the divine, like if I'm following
Yeah.
my divine path, the divine will actually provide me abundance. And having that rug ripped out from under me. And it sucks. Like sometimes showing up means getting rejected. And I got rejected when he went to the third party, but that was 6 months ago or 6 months before the breakup. And I wasn't willing to look at it squarely at that time, or I wasn't resourced. I had to create narratives of myself or trust him over myself. But
Mm-hmm.
in this moment, as I'm facing it and looking at the parts of myself that were like, you are not worthy of safety. You have to be on performance to have safety. You have to earn your love that have not been healed yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm looking at them and I'm finding a whole new set of ways I've silenced myself or not shown up, or when I felt rejected, started to turn on performance to try to game the room or to manipulate the system, only to find that I never really can. But in this, I'm finding self-trust. And the grief is so bad because I was not in integrity. I was not in alignment. If I was really operating off myself, 6 months before the breakup, my body started saying I'm no longer nourished and safe. If I was in alignment, I would have left. But I fell out of alignment and then I fought the game of belonging really hard, tooth and nail. And when you are putting on a mask and trying to do everything someone else wants you to do, only for them to turn around and say no to you,
Yep.
that stings. But you learn you can survive it. And then when you learn that you can survive it easier in integrity, that's a really powerful lesson. When you show in a room with integrity, even if those people don't like you, you can handle it because you love you and you can stand behind the version of yourself that showed up.
Thank you for being so open and vulnerable with that. I mean, even that shows you are doing the work and in touch with where you're going with your own thoughts and how you show up for yourself. And by just sharing that, you're not silencing yourself. You're saying, no, let's not let anybody know this. You could have come on, I'm not going to tell anything. I'm the perfect, massage guy, the perfect the embodiment stuff and all this. Never going to share. But the beauty of that, you said really beautiful stuff. But two things that I grabbed out of that: no longer silencing myself is a huge step forward. And secondly, no longer saying I don't deserve to be safe. Those two things right there, if guys, you take nothing else away from this conversation, is the ability to say, I'm no longer going to silence myself and I do deserve to be safe, but I don't have to require that from somebody else's acceptance of who I am. You can be safe in yourself and you do not have to silence yourself. And I hope that's what, besides everything else we talked about, uh, that's something, because you landed that. I'm like, oh, that's some good nuggets right here at the end of the podcast that really could be stuff that I hope guys take home with them or take into their world. Too many of us silence ourselves. Oh, no, don't say that. Don't say that. When a lot of times those things need to be said, even if it is going to bring up pain. I mean, nobody said we get to live a pain-free life. It's how we talk through with and be in the presence of pain. At least my perspective of that's how we do it and do it well. So do you
Pain
think we
always
solved
has
all the
wisdom.
problems? I think we solved all the problems here, right?
Now let's just fix the government too.
Okay, well, that's a whole nother
While we're
podcast.
at problem solving,
Yeah, yeah,
let's just check a few more things off the list.
right. Yeah, what would happen if they all just got silent for a while?
Oh.
Let's silence them. I mean, but that would be. Can you imagine them? Okay, I'm being really bitchy towards the end of this podcast. I'm like, I can't even imagine the certain thing sitting there meditating. I don't even think it could. But anyway, back on track. Back on track. Um, what do you enjoy most about what you get to do at this point, Devin? And then we'll wrap everything up.
You know, it really depends on the week. I have this really narcissistic piece of me that loves to be the healer, and so when a
Mm,
client like has a catharsis in a session, I'm gonna admit that's like really deeply satisfying. Um, but I think what I maybe enjoy most is every time a client feels safe witnessing a piece of themselves that they had told themselves was unsafe to be seen.
mm,
Something that they had said was socially non-normative or dangerous or would get them in trouble. Every time I see someone love a piece of themselves that they had squashed down and suppressed,
yep.
I feel like genuinely moved, and I love that they trust me to bear witness to that and
Mm,
to be part of that process, because I just think it's beautiful when people start to love the pieces of themselves that they were told were unlovable or they internalized were unlovable.
mm. Oof, that's a good way to roll this all up in a pretty little bow. You learn to love yourself that you were told was unloved. That's like an Oprah line right there. So, no, it is, because I think so many of us as gay men do not love those parts of ourselves that we still see as unlovable, whether it's our narcissistic internal massage therapist or our body, or I don't know how to date. All of these things are things that we've been telling ourselves that are unlovable, and yet every bit of that is unlovable if we just want to give it some love and embrace it. So if somebody wanted to do some work with you, what's the best way for them to find you out there in the planet, besides you're in the New York City area? But if they wanted to do some of this work, how would they do that?
They can always Google me. I have profiles on all the normal sites, but my website is findyourmeaning.coach. You can book an intake call with me. If you scroll
Awesome.
down the website, I have a newsletter I send out about once a month, and I am promising myself this year that I'm going to be repurposing content on social media. So if you want to follow me there, it's devinscott.nyc.
Okay.
But it's pretty empty now, but that is my
Okay.
commitment
Well,
for
I'm
2026.
gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna hold you to
Okay,
that, man. So
please do.
yeah, I'm pretty good, but I've fallen off the wagon already a little bit out the gate this year because of some other stuff. But I recorded 2 videos this morning. I'm like, okay, these little bitches, they're going up real soon. They're gonna get out there. They're gonna. I love them. I love them, but I shouldn't call them bitches. They're my little gems of wisdom. But anyway, thank you so much, Devin, for being here. I appreciate you guys. I hope you're taking some stuff away. There was lots of good stuff, but definitely don't silence yourself. Tell yourself that you deserve to be safe and take some good breaths. Take some good breaths and step into it. And you got 2 guys here willing to help you in any way that we can. And guess what? In just another week, something's coming up. I don't have the schedule in front of me. Usually I do, but there'll be another podcast coming. It could be just Rick solo. So you might have to put up with Baldy on his own. But thank you again, Devin, for being here, man. Really
Thank
appreciate the wisdom and stuff that you shared.
I appreciate the time, Rick.
That's a wrap for 40 Plus. Gay men, gay talk, where size doesn't matter. We drop our bullshit, get over our screwed up fears, make bold moves, and live life without apologies. Don't forget to join us on Facebook at 40 Plus, Gay Men, Gay Talk, where the conversations continue.